Well, thanks again for joining us for another one of our Wise Guys data podcasts here. We're really excited this morning about our guest. She really doesn't need any type of introduction, but I'm going to go through it anyway. I'm just going to give the recap because Sue, you have an amazing background from the data space. We could be here all day just listing all your accomplishments, but we're really honored today to have Sue Carr with us. Sue Carr has been instrumental and a part of PPDM for a very long time. She is CPDA certified, which is our certified petroleum data analyst. She's currently a solutions manager for subsurface at Katalyst. But Sue has been part of our PPDM board. She has served on the strategic committee. She was actively involved in helping put together the new PPDM strategic plan, and we're just really looking forward to the conversation today. Sue, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Matt.
Always, we have our illustrious Data Wise guys joining me today. We have Tim Coburn, we have John Jacobs, and we have Jim Crompton, who need no further introduction because we have gotten to know them quite well during this podcast. I'm Matt Becker. I'm really the useless overhead, just helping to drive the conversation this morning. So, Sue, if you're ready, we're just going to jump right in because we've got all kinds of questions and a limited amount of time. So I just figured we're going to dive in and see where the conversation takes us.
All right.
So I'm going to start off with hopefully an easy one, but from a professional development perspective, what does Katalyst have in place for developing the data management skills, for your employees and just for your departments, and how is that getting promoted as far as like a data management career path?
So Katalyst is a company full of data managers. And one of the things that we do support, especially in the consulting group, which I'm part of, is the CPDA certification. When we go into a client site, it's nice to be able to say, this person has some qualifications to come in and do the job that you're asking us to do. So I think it makes our clients feel more comfortable, but we support the competency framework that Margaret and the team has put together. And we're at the point now where some of the new things coming up, we're thinking about, it's always the same people who are on the teams, myself and Pat Maroney and Sean New when he was part of our organization. We have a crowd of upcoming data managers that we want to be part of PPDM and contributing to PPDM, being part of the teams, part of the committees, part of the work groups. As much as volunteering gives back to the organization, it also gives back to the person who's volunteering. And I think that's super important. We need to make it better for everybody.
So that's really interesting too, because I love how you mentioned a lot of the kind of the offerings, if you will, from a PPDM standpoint. So like the capabilities matrix and some of the other things that they've produced. So is that actually when you're working with your data managers there, are you actually is it part of, I guess, that development plan to get them plugged into PPDM early and start getting them engaged in some of those different offerings that PPDM has?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a new guy start a couple of weeks ago. I've already been talking to him about PPDM and signing up and, make sure you're logged in, make sure you use those resources, take advantage of everything that you have available to you. PPDM gives you a wealth of information at your fingertips as a member. I'm a big supporter of PPDM. I'm sure you guys recognize that.
Yeah. I see Jim is chomping at the bit here, I think, to jump in. Jim, what do you have to say there?
Well, Sue, I want to thank you for those kind words about PPDM, but this is kind of a little bit of a different question. With your organization being heavily involved in consulting with oil and gas companies about their data management challenges, do you find yourself needing to do some of this data management skills development or data management organizational development with your clients? I mean, I'm sure that you certainly recognize for that if for your solutions to be successful in your clients, they need to up their game a bit and to be able to take your product and run with it. But so what do you see some of the challenges of developing the data management skills as a consultant with your client engagements?
That's a great question, Jim. So I don't know, particularly in Canada over the past kind of 5, 6, 7 years, we've been hit really hard with layoffs, especially in the data management community. That community was pretty much wiped out, very close to being wiped out over the last 7 years, say. There really is not a lot of capability left anymore in our clients, and everything data is now, well, data science, data engineers, Python and R, and building reports and dashboards. But the important thing is that if you don't have a foundation of good data, then your analytics, back to the garbage in, garbage out. So far, clients have been kind of willing to let us just do it. I think as the industry starts to get a little busier and they start to build that up again, hoping we can share some of what we do well and push that into some of the client base. But it's a challenge, for sure. It's a challenge.
This is Tim. To kind of follow on to what Jim said there, and my question really was, just because of what you said there, when you bring somebody in new, what kind of skills do they have, if any? And do they bring skills from other industries? Do you send them to other kinds of training sessions other than PPDM? And if so, what are they looking for to get?
We have not brought in somebody from another industry yet. I don't, so far, because there's so many people available, we've been able to pick up geoscientists and geotechs and those kind of skill sets. I think it would be good to bring in somebody from, especially some of these new energy, power, and not that power is a new energy, but some of those other industries that are kind of around the edges of what we consider core, as we move into rebranding who we are and changing our image of what an oil and gas company is and become more energy focused.
The question was really, do you have to train them up other than PPDM background? Do you send them to other kinds of training courses?
Not yet, but I think we're going to have to as we start to grow bigger in the industry and bring in new people.
Sue, this is John. The question I have, and it's sort of along the same lines of what you and Jim were talking about, but from your discussion, it sounds like you are seeing a lot more dependence on consulting groups like yourselves for a lot of the data management for your customers. Do you think this is a trend, or do you really think they'll start to develop that internally as well?
We hope it's a trend because we want to fill that niche in the market as Katalyst. We want to have that group of data consultants who can do those sorts of tasks. Energy companies are funny, especially maybe in Canada. I don't know, that they tend to hire who they know. So if you've got a buddy who's got a buddy, they look at bringing those people in and training them up. You either have a mindset for data management or you don't. You can't bring in somebody who's never done data for 35 years and expect them to be a data manager without a lot of help to get there.
But to the point though, do you see the lack of that capability within the company causing issues with the data?
Yes, very much so. I don't know. We have not done a good job selling ourselves to the executives, and the executives don't see data management as a core function. Your data represents your asset. If your data is not right, your asset is not. You're not maybe utilizing it and maximizing as much as you can.
Just one final one, and then we'll let Matt go on to the next question. But I understand this could be a good business opportunity, and I'm sure Katalyst is very, very competent in being able to do that for your clients, kind of moving forward on this. And you may be the best place, left to nurture and develop those data management sort of skills. But again, looking forward, and a lot of this conversation is about looking forward. That really means that your clients are dependent on you. Your clients are going to be depending on your skills and understanding what's good and bad about their data that they're working with, and they've outsourced the foundation to you to run and manage for them, because you're trusted. Well, of course, obviously that's a very good thing, but looking forward in terms of going into different data sets or different type of companies, I mean, that puts a huge responsibility on Katalyst to stay not only, doing what they're doing today well, but in the future and growing. And what do they need next? Being their go-to person for all this data management. Are you planning to be their go-to person in the future?
Yes. We would like to be the go-to person. I kind of, if you were around in the 80s, we used to do all our own processing. I started as a processor for Gulf, and we had our own processing center. And through the 80s, we started to outsource processing. And an oil company would not imagine now having a processing center internally and we had a whole floor of people who did nothing but process seismic data. Kind of liken what's going on in data management right now to that. They're willing to let that go so that they can focus more on maybe the things that are really core to them, drilling wells. And then as we move into new energy in that space, I hope that we take this opportunity to take all the learnings we've learned over the past 40 years and start nice and clean and build a nice clean world for this new energy space we're moving into.
Well, you're certainly right. I remember Chevron having drill rigs, having seismic crews, having the seismic data processing center that you mentioned, and even logging crews and stuff. So clearly the industry has developed a sense of trust for contractors to do that for them. So now the fact that a third party manages their data, which is, we all kind of talk about being an enterprise asset, you've got the keys to their kingdom.
Yeah. It's important to build that trusted relationship and to be that trusted advisor for them, for sure.
You get them all pulled in and then you raise your prices, right?
That's somebody else's
Jim.
Department.
Yeah. Don't spill the secret sauce, Jim.
Jim's going into marketing.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on something you said a little earlier, Sue, as we were kind of talking about, the whole idea of having kind of the consultancy and the advising side, and almost like an outsource model with some of this. But one of the things you said that I know I've dealt with a lot too in my career was when you said that executives don't see the importance of this, or don't understand, or maybe a better way to put it is they don't understand the importance of it and where it falls in the organization. And this kind of goes along with the question that we had was focusing more probably on the executives, but how do we get executives from your perspective to start respecting what it means when we talk about data management and managing a data hierarchy and making sure our data is well organized and trusted and reliable, because this is obviously an issue that is across the industry. What do you see as sort of the key way to get executives and those leads on board to help them recognize, hey, data management's important and it's got to be fundamental to the processes and the operations from day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had the magic bullet for that. You need to talk to them in their language in terms that they understand. And as data managers, we're we're heroes and we're problem solvers, and we see a problem and we run to fix it and quickly put everything in place so that they don't fall down on those things or trip over those things. I don't know. I just think I was working through a career positioning kind of thing a couple of years ago, and my coach was not an oil and gas person, didn't know anything about data. And one of the things that she helped me with was okay, how do you manage your field trucks? Do you know who drives them, when the insurance is due, when your licensing is due? Of course they know all that stuff. They know that stuff they can tell you where the truck is at the moment because it's all GPS controlled. And then I asked the question, so for a $70,000 or an $80,000 asset, you put that level of due diligence and governance and control and management. Why, with your seismic data that's worth billions of dollars, why don't you see the same value in that? And when you ask that question, it really makes them start thinking about, I don't know, that's a good question, that kind of thing. So, but you have to
That's a
talk
great
to it
point.
in a way that they can relate to it. Most of them are operations guys. They don't know about data. They don't care about data. Somebody else has always done it for them. And because somebody else has always done it for them, they think it's easy, but it's not easy.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I like I like the visualization you gave there too, because not only does it can you make it a bit more relatable, from from an operations, look, if you're managing trucks and that equipment, how much more important to manage your seismic. But I also there's a dollars and cents value to that as well, and I know
Yeah.
that's one of the things that constantly is a struggle, is trying to help people understand the quantitative value, right, from a dollars and cents that data management provides, because sometimes it's not immediately inherent
Yeah.
that, hey, if I go and solve a data hierarchy problem, for example, it's actually going to result in this amount of data savings, or maybe reduce the risk of a data cost down the road, right? So I like how you made that comparison of drawing it back to something simple, in order for them to then be able to tie that back to their more complicated data problems. Jim, I know you've got a question there too. Go for it.
Well, I wanted to just highlight a comment that Sue made that I think is a really important insight. I mean, speaking their own language, that's important. That's not always easy. It's obvious. So, but you said that someone's always done it for them. If they're, say, an operations person or something like that, I think that's one of the good things and bad things of the data management community, is that we have worked really, really hard to make it seem like all this stuff's really, really easy for them. So they ask a question, we have an answer. They wanted the spreadsheet on the weekly drilling report, or the weekly production report, is always done, even though the poor young data analyst petroleum engineer worked for 48 hours to get the damn spreadsheet right, and to fix all of the errors in it. It always seems to be easy. So maybe that's one of the reasons they don't value it much, because it seems to be, oh, we can do without that, because I can always get Sue in here and she'll have the right answer for me. Do you ever worry about the fact that they become that dependent, and that they don't value it because it's kind of like a utility? They turn the light
Yeah.
switch on and the energy comes on?
Yes, I agree. I'm not good at talking up to executives, so I've never been particularly good at having those hard conversations with them, but I would jump in and fix something behind the scenes and they would never know it was a problem. So we have become our own worst enemies, probably. If we let some things fall, maybe they would appreciate data management more. I don't think it's in the nature of a data manager to let things fall. So it's a chicken and egg, caught between a rock and a hard place, all those silly kind of analogies.
Yeah,
So,
that's a really good point too. As far as where's that balance of of helping them to realize it's a problem versus maybe letting them experience a little bit of pain first with the data, and then being able to use that as a better way to say, okay, hey, here's how we can avoid that in the future. And it is a very fine line, but I know sometimes you do have to kind of let them experience some pain. But you're right, from a data management, from our perspective as data managers, we don't want people to have to go through that pain, right?
Yeah.
Tim, I know you've got a question there. Please go for it.
So I was just underscoring something that Sue said there, because I think it was important. She said that she wasn't good at or comfortable with talking up to executives. I think that's an attitude that we as the community have promoted a lot over the years. We just go fix it. And I think if we can somehow train our new folks coming in more on the business side and the importance and the business risk of what we're doing, that might help. I don't have a good answer about that, but I think that is a missing point for us.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that too, because with me having some kids in college right now, one of the things I have found that's very interesting, especially in the business school, I haven't seen it as much yet in some of the engineering and the technical practices yet. Although I do think it's starting to change. You're seeing more emphasis, and I think this is a good trend. You're seeing some more emphasis in some of the classwork around communication, right? And being able to more effectively drive the concepts, not just being able to understand and document them on paper, but I've seen my kids have to do more speeches in what used to be more of a writing of papers exercise in the class. And I think that's great. Back to your point, Tim, because it's going to force people to get more comfortable communicating, especially communicating upwards, right? Being able to simplify your concepts and then being able to draw the right conclusions and help those executives understand what those conclusions are as well. It's a great point.
Is there a different consulting fee structures for allowing your customers to go through pain so they appreciate you more?
Nice.
I will say a very recent example. I did have a client that we did just say we're going to pause because and we gave them some recommendations on some training for their people to go take, because we were to a point where there was us staying there and billing them was going to be an ineffective use of their their budget and their resources, and their people needed to go take some fundamental training. And so we just said, hey, look, we're going to pause the project. You guys go back, kind of, build up your house a little bit, and then we'll re-engage at a later date. And we just stayed in touch, and we had some workshops. They had some Q&A sessions with them. But some of that was, it was just we had to make the conscious decision of we can't move forward. We're just going to pause and then let them go address the issues internally that they need to address, and then start it up later. And that was a hard decision for everyone to have to make.
How did they take that? Were they open to that?
They were very open to it. I think they were a bit surprised that we were making that recommendation, right? But at the same time, they recognized that because of the work we did, it really highlighted some of the skills gaps that they had in their organization, and it gave our sponsor the justification to go back to his boss to say, hey, this is what we need to go do, right? So it actually built out a business case for him to go do some internal training that they desperately needed. Yeah. John, I know you've got a question there too.
Well, it's sort of along the same line, but I know Jim was a little tongue in cheek, but I mean, he sort of hit the core of it. Do you see over time, as like Katalyst or other companies take on that role of data manager, do you see an issue justifying the costs associated with that because they don't really understand what it takes?
I think that all our conversations need to be starting with the value first, and that's something we're really trying to do. Here's the value. And
Right.
then the cost, yeah. Cost is a second part of the conversation. But yeah, they don't see the value today. They don't want to pay for it for sure. It's a tough sell. But then they get themselves into trouble and then they start to see the value. We did a project at a company that had a couple of litigations on using seismic inappropriately. The third time that came across an executive's desk, he said, enough of this, go fix it, go find the right people, fix it forever. So maybe they do need to feel some pain, but.
And Sue, I mean, all of us can relate to that story. I think we've all experienced that at some point or another, where we see it takes a huge issue or a high expense for someone to recognize, oh, I do have a problem. And that's, it's almost like that's the only way they really understand the value, is when it really hits them in the pocketbook.
Yeah.
Well, so I've got one more question for you then, Sue, and this is it's a bit purposely open-ended, but I definitely wanted to get your perspective on this. Is because we're talking about some of the challenges, right? But from your perspective, if there was one thing that really gives you a big headache today, that just, boy, if we could address this one item, it would really help. Is there one thing in your mind, and what would that be?
Let's harness AI to fix the little things that are tedious and people don't like to do and time consuming. Let's see what we can use the new technology to help us with how we do our job. Let's not be scared of it. I know there's a lot of chat GPT, stay away from it, all this. I think we owe it to ourselves to see what kind of how we use those tools, and they're just tools, and it doesn't mean that people are going to lose jobs and all of that. There may be some jobs that go away, but there's more interesting work that comes up because of it. So thank you for opening that question. That's exciting to me, that whole space.
Yeah, I that has been coming up more and more in my conversations too, and I wholeheartedly agree with your answer. It is an opportunity to see how we can leverage those tools. And I loved how you said it is a tool, and it can be a very useful tool. And just like any other tool, you got to plan for it, you got to see what works, and you got to make the necessary adjustments. And Tim, I think you were going to say something along those lines too.
So is that a headache or an opportunity?
It's an opportunity to solve the headache of all the little tedious stuff that we have to do that takes us for a long time.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
Good catch.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and once again, the 30 minutes have just flown by. But yeah, I definitely, Sue, I think there's a whole lot more we could talk about. There's a lot more questions, so I definitely would love to have you back for another Q&A session. And I love the answers, and and once again, the discussion has been. I was taking a bunch of notes as you were talking and as the wise guys were chiming in. So I just want to say thank you again for your time today. Thank you for. Yeah, and thank you for taking, just this morning to sit and chat with us, and we would definitely love to have you back in the near future.
Thank you. I would come back now. I know you guys don't bite. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Sue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
To all of our listeners, I just want to say again to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Look, we're always open for suggestions on topics or guests. So, please reach out and let us know. Obviously, we would love you to go out to ppdm.org, check out our website, check out some of those offerings that we talked about, the certification. And until then, we look forward to seeing you guys next time. And to the Data Wise guys, as always, thanks, guys. Great questions as usual. And love the conversation today. Thanks.
Thank you.